y'all. So I am not your typical YouTuber that will be editing my film very much because I don't know how to do all that right now. I'm sure eventually I will get pretty good at it, but probably not anytime real soon. And to be honest with you, most of my time to talk to y'all is on my way to work and on my way from work. So you'll be getting a lot of these car videos. I haven't, should I say, introduced myself properly and told you my story. So this is going to be pretty brief, and I'll go into it more later. But for you moms and dads out there that are suffering the loss of your child, I want you to hang on, because there is healing at the end of this journey, and hopefully your journey will not last as long as my journey did. It doesn't have to. So my name is Lisa Hagler. I had 4 beautiful boys, Randall, Billy, Hunter, and Hayden, and I had a beautiful stepdaughter, Kimberly. So my oldest son, at 23 years old, took his life. He had been battling depression most of his life, and he had been in the hospital for 7 days for depression. He came and told me, "Mama, this is really bad. I would never want to hurt myself because I love you so much. You and my brothers, I don't want to hurt y'all, but I'm hurting really, really bad." So we went to the hospital. He was admitted, and after 7 days, the doctor called me and said his insurance will no longer pay. They want to kick him out. He said, "I will keep him here for another 3 days." He said, "But then there's nothing I can do. My hands are tied." Well, I'm frantically trying to figure out how I'm going to come up with money to get him into treatment. So I'm calling every place that I can find to try and get him some mental health care. And there's just not a lot out there, and what's out there is very expensive. It was like $3,000 a day or something. So long story short, they had changed his medicine probably 2 or 3 times in the 10 days that he was in the hospital. Then he gets out and he tells me, he's crying. He says, "Mama, I feel worse than I did when I went in." He said, "I'm hearing like evilness, in my mind." And he said, and he was crying, and he said, "I'm really scared, Mom." So I'm calling. I can't find a place that will take him because of the insurance. So we go to, in our area, what is like a government hospital. And we sit in the emergency room for 24 hours or so until they can get a bed for him up on the 13th floor. They did get a bed for him, and he was in the hospital for 7 days. So altogether, he was in the hospital for about 17 days, plus that 24 hours that we were in the emergency room. They changed his medicine again. Now, if you know anything about mental health care, and I didn't then, I do now, but I didn't then, it's not good to change the medicine so many times and then release a young person. So he was released, and he was devastated. He was like, "Mama, I'm scared. And he thought that he was better off dead, and that we were better off without him, because he felt like being ill and having a mental disorder, bipolar and depression, was affecting the whole family." And I'm not saying that it didn't affect the family, but I would have that affecting me for the rest of my life if I could, rather than the alternative of him no longer being with me. We were sitting at the table praying. I knew that he was suicidal. So I hid the only gun that I had in the house. It was a shotgun, and I hid it up in the attic, which was in the garage. Well, his dad had he had a little sister with his dad had with his girlfriend, and for some reason I was babysitting her that day, and we had run out of milk, and she was hungry, and I couldn't get her cereal, and I didn't want to leave Randall, but I had to go to the store, and it was right down the road. So I told him, I said, baby, I'll be right back. I'm gonna run to the store with Kerrigan and get her some milk, and I'll be right back. Well, if you go out I'm in my kitchen, and you go out that door, it goes into the garage, and I get in the car and I leave. Well, when I come back, that door's locked. That door's never locked. And so I start panicking, and I'm panicking, and I'm praying, and I'm banging on the door, and I see him. And he comes to the door, and he has a crack in the door, and he's holding the gun. And so I grab the gun, and I run to the other end of the house, down the hall, to the last bedroom on the left, and I tossed it under the bed. Now, granted, he didn't see where I went, but he knew I was running down there, and I'm crying, and he's crying, and he said, Mama, I'm so sorry. I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. So I'm loving on him and talking to him. I get his sister all situated, ate breakfast, and went to the little game room, and she's playing, and we're sitting at the kitchen table, and we're praying, and well, he's like, Mama, pray with me. And so we're praying, and we're talking, and I'm loving on him, and he jumps up. Well, he gets up to go where, I don't know where I thought he was going, but he went the other way where the gun was. And when it hit me, oh my God, he's going down the hall to the bedroom. I went after him, but I didn't get to him quick enough. He went, and as I threw open the door, he was on his knees, and he shot himself. As you can imagine, that was just awful. Well, you know, I call his brother, his 21-year-old brother was in Houston, and I call him and tell him and his father, and of course it's just, as you can imagine, devastating. Well, his brother Billy's telling me, Mama, you know, where did he do it? How did he do it? He's just in a panic, and I'm trying to tell him, and he's like, just leave everything. You know, I'm in a panic because, you know, I have my son, I have to clean up out of the room before his brothers get home, and I didn't know what to do. So when my friends all say that they're going to intercept his two brothers off the school bus, they come on two different buses. Well, when Hayden, his younger brother, gets off the bus, and at the time he was 7, almost 8 years old, my neighbors grab him and kind of try and herd him off to their house, but he knew something was wrong. There's yellow tape taped all around the yard, and there's police, and there's TV people there, reporters, and there's cops, and there's investigators. There's just, my house is crazy. And then my other son, who at the time was 17, he pulls up in the bus, and he gets out, and he just saw me, and he just walked up, and he started hugging me because he knew. And so, long story short, I know Billy's on his way home. I don't know what to do. I'm panicking because for whatever reason, he wants to go in there and see where his brother was, how his brother was kneeling. He wants to, I guess he wants to see the state of mind he was in. Was he crying? What was he doing? And he wanted to be there. So I call my friend, my best friend, and her name is Tracy. We've been friends since kindergarten or first grade, and I call her and I tell her, well, you know, she was there, and I tell tell her that I have to get all this cleaned up. So what does she do? We get on our worst clothes and we start ripping up carpet and scrubbing everything down with Clorox, and it was such a horrible, horrible scene, and cleaning curtains, and and it was just awful, but she did it with me. When Billy got home, he immediately ran back to the room, and that was a room, his room, and he ran back to the room and he just knelt down where his brother was, and you could almost see where his brother fell from where I cut out the carpet. And so he lay there and he cried. And as you can imagine, it was so devastating because my other sons were coming in, and it was just so bad. It was so bad. Billy started drinking a lot after that and self-medicating, and it was, it was hard. My niece and her 2 kids needed a place to stay temporarily because they were moving in from North Carolina, so I told them they could stay with us. And so thank God, because she helped me with Billy. I couldn't lift him and get him in bed, and dress him and get him in bed when he would pass out on the floor. So she would help me with that. And he would get up and go to work the next day, and then, he'd be sad all over again. It was just horrible. 4 months after Randall took his life, Billy, he'd come home that day, and it was a bad day. And he was drinking, and he said he was going to go out, and I begged him not to. And he said, "Mama, I'll be okay. I'm just going to go have a couple drinks somewhere, I just need to get out of the house." And so he did. And my brother, I was crying, and my brother said, "Don't worry, Lily, I'll go with him. I'll make sure that he's okay." He said, "I can't stay out long, though, with him because I start a new job tomorrow. I have to be there at 6 a.m. I said, "Okay." Well, they left. Well, we had a situation with our phone that day. My cell phones weren't working, and my landline phone could receive calls, but it couldn't make calls. And so Billy was the only one that had a cell phone from a different carrier and wasn't on my cell phone bill, so his was okay. Well, I couldn't call him. I couldn't call him and check on him, and it was getting late, and I was panicking. My brother's wife called me, and she said, "Hey, Joe and Billy's not back yet." And I said, "No." I said, "Please come get me. Come get me. Let's go look for him." Well, I was already just a mess, in a panic mess, and I had taken medicine that I had just gotten for the first time that day, depression medicine, anxiety medicine, and everything that the doctor prescribed me for what I was going through with for my loss with Randall. And anyway, we went looking for him, and he was at a topless club, and we walk in, and I'm in some glorified pajamas, basically. And we go in, and there's my Billy boy, and he's sitting right up front, and he sees me, and he's like, "Mommers, oh, my beautiful mommers," and he's introducing me to the girls, and he's telling them, "Look at my beautiful mommers." And anyway, and I'm like, "Billy, you want to go home?" And he's like, "No, Mama, I'm going home with," let's just call her Megan. I don't remember her name. "I'm going home with Megan." And I was like, "No, Bill," and you want to say they're just going to take all your money. Well, I was holding on to some of his money because I usually helped him pay his bills. All that money ended up going. But he said she got off at 3 and she was going to bring him home. Well, I wasn't leaving him because my brother Joe had to leave. He had to leave, and I told him, "Y'all go ahead and take my car." I mean, y'all go ahead and take Billy's car and I'll bring him home. Well, he didn't want to leave right then, and so I went and found a table in the back of this topless club, and I just kept looking at him, and every 30 minutes or so I'd go up there and I'd say, Billy, and he'd go, Mommers, oh my beautiful Mommers, and act like he hadn't seen me, you know, and introduce me to the girls again, and they would tell me, don't worry about it, we're going to bring him home. Well, come 3 o'clock, finally, the girl, I guess she got off work, and I could see he picked up his phone, he called, she must not have answered. And so I see him kind of drop his head. He gets up, again, forgetting that I'm there. He gets up, and he's walking, and I get up, and I go meet him, and he kind of puts his head down. I said, come on, baby, let's go home. He goes, yes, ma'am. We go get in the truck. He opens the glove box, and he throws his phone in it. He gets in the car, puts on a seatbelt, and throws his seat back, and he's out like a light. Get in the car, and I put on my cruise control. But earlier that day, it had been raining, and so I'd flipped the mats over in my car where the slick slide was down and the rubber part was up so I wouldn't get the mud everywhere. Put it on cruise, and I'm heading home, and it's dark and it's raining, it's wet, and they had a little bit of road construction on the side of the road. Well, my 2 right tires went off the side of the road in some loose gravel and some water, and it scared me. It like shook my car, or kind of, you know, how you do when you're about to get in a wreck. And so I went to press my foot on the brake to take it off of cruise control, and as I did, I pushed the mat underneath my accelerator, and we took off flying. And as we did, we flipped and flipped and flipped and hit poles and cattle gates and landed in someone's yard. To my surprise, he had been ejected. The door had been ripped off, and he had been ejected. I see him laying on his stomach. I can't get out on my side of the car, so I start trying to crawl on his side, and I get out, and I'm in pain, but you know, I just want to get to him. And as I look at him, I can't visibly see anything wrong with him other than I could tell he had a very, very bad broken arm. And I lay by him, and I'm kissing his cheek, and I'm telling him, baby, we've been in a wreck, and Mama can't move you because you were ejected, and I don't want to move you in case something's wrong with your neck. And I can hear him breathing, and he's breathing hard. Cops come, ambulances come, you know, and of course it's a bad scene. So one ambulance takes him, and I'm behind while the police are talking to me and waiting on another ambulance. And long story short, by the time I get to the hospital, Bill had already passed away. I didn't know this and I'm at the hospital. Well, what I didn't know is Hunter, my 17-year-old, he wakes up, and he goes in the living room, and he sees my niece, and he says, hey, is Mom and Bill back yet? And she said, no. Her mom and Aunt Lisa went looking for him, and she's never come back. So he heads out, and he starts looking. He goes by one club, and the only one that was open at that time, and doesn't see our vehicles in the driveway, so he goes immediately to the hospital. I guess he just had that feeling. He goes to the hospital. He gets there before I even make it there, but Billy's there, and Billy had died. And they take my sweet boy, and they let him in there. They let him see his broken and dead brother. Billy's nose was split open, his face, it was just, his body was horrible. And they let him see that. And he's crying, and he's asking where his mom is, and if his mom is okay. And they're like, she's going to be okay, she'll be okay. And I guess that's right about the time when they told me that he didn't make it, that Billy didn't make it. And Hunter hears me screaming through the hospital. And so he comes running to me. And anyway, there's still cops there and everything because it's a fatality. And, you know, they're doing blood work and just all kind of stuff. And so it was just horrible. It was just seriously horrible. And Hunter, as you can imagine, he was just broken. And my niece came up to the hospital and she said, I'll get Aunt Lisa, I'll bring her home. And so Hunter left to go get his little brother up and ready for school. Well, that's all I can tell you today because I just made it to work. But I will tell you some more of the story either later today or tomorrow. I love y'all, and sweet moms and dads, hang on, okay? Just hang on. I love you.